everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something that might sound a little heavy on the surface, but is actually a total game changer. We're unpacking the Nigeria Revised National Tax Policy of 2017. Let's explore exactly how a massive economy sets out to completely rewire its financial lifeblood.
But right before we get into the weeds, I want you to think about this question. How does a nation actually build sustainable wealth? It's so easy to look at taxation as just a burden, right? A mandatory dent in our hard-earned money. But this policy flips that entire script. It asks us to view taxation not as a penalty, but as the literal engine driving a nation's development and economic management.
To see how they plan to pull this off, here's our roadmap for today. First, the new tax vision. Second, the 7 principles of taxation. Third, driving Nigeria's economic growth. Fourth, stakeholders, who does what. Fifth, upgrading tax administration. And finally, putting policy into action. Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the new tax vision. Now, this 2017 policy isn't just your standard dry list of who pays what. Honestly, it's more like a master blueprint for the orderly development of the entire nation. It lays down the absolute foundation for all future tax laws. It acts as a reference point for every single stakeholder involved, clarifies exactly who is supposed to be doing what, and, most importantly, it sets a concrete benchmark to hold everyone accountable.
Moving right along to Section 2, 7 Principles of Taxation.
Any legitimate system has to be equitable and fair, asking people to pay based on their actual ability. It needs to be simple, crystal clear, and convenient. But I want you to pay super close attention to these last few: low compliance cost and flexibility. The sheer time and money spent just trying to follow the rules has got to be kept to an absolute minimum. Plus, the system has to be flexible, because at the end of the day, a truly fair tax system shouldn't suffocate business. It should actually encourage economic activity. Which brings us to Section 3, driving Nigeria's economic growth. This right here is a massive strategic shift. The policy explicitly states that the tax system needs to pivot and focus more on indirect taxes. And why is that? Well, direct taxation is notoriously hard to track and way too easy to evade. Indirect taxation, though, it's much easier to collect, smoother to administer, and a whole lot harder to dodge. It is a highly pragmatic, realistic approach to locking in sustainable revenue. The whole philosophy really comes together in this quote directly from the policy. It also puts citizens in the role of stakeholders who are directly contributing to national development. Think about that for a second. That is the social contract in action. Paying taxes shouldn't feel like your money is vanishing into a black hole. In return, the government is strictly tasked with using that revenue to build a sustainable platform for economic growth, meaning, real wealth and actual jobs for everyone.
Let's look at Section 4, stakeholders. Who does what?
This breakdown is absolutely fascinating. Obviously, the government implements the laws and funds the tax authorities. And taxpayers, the core of the entire system, have to fulfill their civic duty. But look at the revenue agencies. Their explicit mandate is to treat the taxpayer as a customer. Let's be real, that is probably not the vibe most of us get when dealing with the tax office. It's a total paradigm shift. And we can't ignore the media and advocacy groups, whose crucial job is to push tax education, drive accountability, and keep the reporting accurate.
Next up, Section 5, upgrading tax administration.
So how do they actually pull this off technically? By fixing decades of uncoordinated, messy registrations through aggressive database harmonization. Step 1 is issuing a nationwide Taxpayer Identification Number, or TIN, to every taxable person. Step 2 leverages the central bank's existing bank verification number data. And Step 3 syncs all of that up with databases from National Identity Management, the Communications Commission, and the Corporate Affairs Commission. The ultimate goal? One seamless, unified view of the taxpayer. And it goes way beyond just registering people. These administrative upgrades are super tech-heavy. The policy mandates automated payment processing to make paying easier and plug up revenue leaks. It demands entrenched electronic record-keeping. Interestingly, it also paves the way for tax amnesty programs to safely widen the tax net. Oh, and here is a really cool part: dispute resolution. If a disagreement pops up, the policy pushes for amicable solutions, like arbitration first. Dragging things through the judicial courts is meant to be an absolute last resort. Finally, Section 6, putting policy into action. The heavy lifting here falls squarely on the Ministry of Finance. They're the ones setting the reform machinery into motion, constantly adapting because, let's face it, taxation isn't static. They are in charge of automating remittances and monitoring compliance. But their most ambitious goal? Developing key performance indices to propel Nigeria into the top 50 globally for the ease of paying taxes.
But the responsibility definitely doesn't stop at the ministry. The president and state governors are mandated to ensure there is only one revenue agency per level of government, so no more overlapping, confusing bodies. The legislature is urged to set up dedicated taxation committees. And get this, the Electoral Commission, INEC, is tasked with making political parties publicly declare their tax agendas during campaigns, meaning politicians actually have to explain exactly how they plan to finance those big campaign promises so voters can make truly informed choices.
From unifying fragmented national databases to literally forcing campaign transparency, the 2017 revised national tax policy is a sweeping, incredibly ambitious blueprint. But it leaves us with one massive, vital question to ponder. How will the strict execution of these policies actually shape a sustainable future for Nigeria's economy in the real world? It's all about turning ink on a page into tangible national wealth, and it's definitely something we should all be watching closely. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.